Hey, thanks a lot for coming back. This is Dave Jewell from Free Run Speed. Going to talk further on history of running and running shoes. In the late 90s and early 2000s, while the women's running market was growing and emerging and then continues to grow today, the brands were organizing themselves to talk to women and build women's only product. But at the same time, there were some fantastic runners out there doing just unbelievable things, and probably one of the greatest rivalries on the track happened during this time. Two guys, Paul Turgot and Haile Gebrselassie. Turgot was the king of cross country. He won cross country gold at the Worlds numerous times. On the track, he was really good. His only problem was Gebrselassie was just that much better. 1996 Olympic Games, Turgot took silver, Gebrselassie took gold. 2000 Olympic Games, Turgot got silver, Gebrselassie took gold. In 2003, Turgot had already moved to the marathon, and in Berlin ran a world record 2:04:55. The younger Gebrselassie followed that up in 2008, running 2:03:59 in Berlin for a world record. There was an American runner who would have been champion, would have been world champion, had those two guys not been there. Or maybe not, but he was really darn good. His name was Bob Kennedy, and he was the first non-African to go under 13 minutes at 5,000 meters. Just an amazing runner. And in fact, Nike built spikes with his name on them. Now, I'm fortunate to have met all three of these gentlemen. I first met Paul Turgot in early 2000 in Eldoret, Kenya. I was there on a trip with Fila. I got to run with the Kenyans, but I also got to meet some of the best runners we've ever seen. So I met Paul Turgot just after he won the Kenyan National Cross Country Championship. He went on to win Worlds and then went on to the Sydney Olympics. A day or so later, I had lunch with Moses Tanui. Look him up. Pretty fantastic guy in his own right. I met Gebrselassie actually in 2008, right before he set that world record, because I worked for Adidas in Germany. I actually was at that marathon. And then Bob Kennedy, I helped him with some stores out here in Southern California, so I met him long after his career, but I got some great insight into how he trained and what he was thinking about during that time. On the women's side, you don't have to go too much further than talk about Paula Radcliffe. She won her first London Marathon in 2002 and then went on to win London multiple times. She won New York City. She set the world record that stood for, I think, 16 years. Crazy world record. So there were running performances, just great running performances, but those runners weren't driving product. It was women driving product at the time. So I'm only going to talk about two shoes in this video. The first, Asics Gt 2010. There was a guy that worked at Adidas. He was involved in that Supernova that later became the Supernova Classic, which, oh, by the way, while I was at Adidas, I was the one that killed it. That guy moved over to Asics. And when the new GT 2010 was on the dock to be briefed, designed, and launched, he grabbed that Supernova and took it to the designers and said, make this, but make it Asics. I'm simplifying. And so that's what they did, because what that shoe had was great balance in the forefoot, which is where women wanted, where when a woman put a shoe on, the first thing she did was roll up onto her on the forefoot. And if she didn't feel supported, she wasn't buying. So that GT 2010 followed the Supernova base nets. A few years later, Brooks was trying to really get into the market, get into the running specialty market, because running specialty was booming at the time. And they needed a shoe. So they went to one of the best specialists in the country, which happens to be in their backyard. His name is Chet James, and he's at Super Jock and Jill. And they go to him and they say, Chet, help us with the adrenaline. He pulls the Supernova off the wall, or so the story goes, pulls the Supernova off the wall and says, here, make this. Simple as that. Brooks went to the design studio. They looked at the Supernova. They looked at the bottom nets. And they built the Adrenaline 4. And guess what? That shoe took off at running specialty. It was what you call a go-to shoe. You'd walk in, woman would walk in and say, the ball of my foot hurts. You'd go in the back, grab a GT, that Adrenaline GTS4, put it on her foot, game over. That's what she took. It was so simple. It was beautiful. That's where Brooks got it. That's why you love Brooks today. Because they went and talked to a running specialist and said, help us out. And remember, I said last week that Supernova was going to be a driver in the future. The Asics GT was #1. The GT 2010 was #1, and the updates were #1 at running specialty. Oh, day in, day out, #1. And here along comes the Brooks Adrenaline. So it was a competition like it was on the track between Gebrselassie and Turgot. It was a competition between the Asics 2010 or 2011 or whatever the numbers were and the Adrenaline. It was game on. So that's the history. That's where we are. We're going to start getting into minimalism next time. A few years before minimalism really started. Couple notes before I go. On Mondays, I'm putting out a Monday morning coffee post on the website. It's basically a recap of what happened in the last week in terms of racing, interesting things I found on the internet. I'll put the last week's below so that you can read it. Have a great run today, tomorrow, this weekend. Remember, wave, say good morning, smile. People appreciate it. And right now, we could use more and more happy people out there on the roads, trails, everywhere. Thanks a lot for watching. Talk to you later.